G'day there, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and congratulations to all of you champs. You've done it. You found the champ dog. Super excited to be with you guys today. New cards have just come out on Arena. It's kind of like Christmas. I'm a little pressed for time, so the intro is going to be a little condensed. I've got to run off and finish dinner and a few other things, but I couldn't wait to jump in, play with some of the new cards, and share them with you legendary people. So without too much further ado, let's jump in. And I'll show you what we're playing today. So, playing Vamps today, guys. Of course we are. It's a vampire themed set. The vampires are mostly in my two favorite colors, so I cannot wait to jump in. I've tried a few times to do this DeckTech. This is like probably my fourth or fifth take. It's just gotten really long each time. So what I'm going to do is just give you guys a moment to take in the deck list. You're probably aware of what some of the vampires do. I'm going to give you some general ideas about what the deck is trying to do and maybe touch on a couple of the more interesting choices that I've got in this list. So we're an aggressive, somewhat straddling the line between aggressive and mid-range, but we're a fairly aggressive deck. We want to apply pressure, we want to get on board, we want to attack, and we want to deal damage. The vampire mechanic in Midnight Hunt relied on your opponent losing life, similar to Spectacle in Guilds of Ravnica, but for that to happen, we need to be damaging our opponent. We're not playing burn or direct damage in this deck, so the way we're doing that is playing our creatures and pushing damage that way. So a lot of our creatures are either aggressively costed. We've got a few 1-drops here. You might think Valentin's a bit weird. He's just the second best 1-drop vampire available. And he's got menace, so a little bit of evasion, and the lifelink can come in handy, particularly if you buff him up with Vampire Socialite. Some of our creatures have flying, menace, first strike, flying, first strike. So our opponents are either disincentivized to block them in the case of the first strikers, or they're difficult to block because they have some sort of evasion. So we're all about pushing damage. We've got Vampire Socialite to basically act as a lord, pump the squad. We've got some incidental value going on in things that create blood tokens. The Falcon Wrath Forebear can actually come straight from the graveyard back onto the battlefield if I sacrifice blood tokens. And I've got Sorin the Mirthless as a little bit of a late game engine. He's just a 2-of because we're an aggressive deck. We don't want too many 4-drops. We don't want too many 4-drops that are value oriented when we're just trying to get people dead. But we want something to help carry us into the late game if it comes up. So he creates flying lifelink vampires. He helps us draw cards. He's the vampire planeswalker for the set. We've also got Anya, 4 mana, 4/5. A little bit of incidental value, creates blood tokens for us. And we can also use her ability to pay to sacrifice a blood token or a creature and drain an opponent for 2. So she gives us a little bit of extra reach later in the game. So the play pattern I'm hoping for with her is having played out some vampires, attacked back and forth, later in the game when the board is stalling out and maybe my opponent is, in the case of say MonoGreen Aggro, outscaling my creatures, that I can get the last bit of reach that I need, just sacrificing creatures, sacrificing blood tokens when I maybe can't get through as easily in combat, and just burn them out in the late game. Cemetery Gatekeeper. This is not the deck where you're going to get maximum impact from your Cemetery Gatekeeper. So he's sort of a Punisher card. He's going to do a little bit better in a deck with a little bit more aggression and probably a little more like burn and reach. Like in a burn deck, a mono-red aggro deck, he's probably going to be very good. He's going to be good enough for us. He's a 2 mana 2/1 first strike. So, he's not always the easiest creature to tangle with in combat. And he does give us some reach in dealing 2 damage. We'll be taking damage too, but we don't care because we're an aggro deck. But it's another way to do damage to our opponent, even on a stalled board. Or like against a control player, you can snag an instant or a sorcery, and then even if they answer the Gatekeeper or, say for example, Is It Dragons, they're bouncing our things, they're casting expressive iteration. Even though they're setting us back, we're still pushing a little bit of damage through his triggers while that's happening. So it's mitigating some of the tempo loss. as I said, this is not the ideal deck for this card, I feel, but I think he's good enough and fits our game plan fairly well. And also, if you can buff up a first strike dude with counters from the Socialite, they're very difficult to deal with in combat. Dominating Vampire is another interesting one. 3 mana 3/3 with a sort of threaten effect. When it ETBs, you can gain control of a creature whose mana value is less than or equal to the number of vampires you control. As usual, you untap it, it gets haste. Now, you'd expect to see this in a deck with more sack outlets. We do have a sack outlet in Anya, but we're only playing 2 of her. The play pattern I'm hoping for with Dominating Vampire is just to help us push damage on turns we otherwise couldn't. Say, for example, I've played a 1-drop and a 2-drop, or maybe like a few 1-drops. Whatever it is, I've spent my first few turns playing our creatures. My opponent's played some creatures, and maybe they've dropped an old growth troll, for example. It's a 4/4. I don't have a creature that can attack through that safely. Turn 3, slap down my Dominating Vampire, get control of the troll. I can attack with all of my creatures and with the troll and keep pushing damage. Now, I could do the same thing with just a removal spell like Infernal Grasp, but the good thing here is I'm still adding to my board state. So the play pattern I'm hoping for is that I can still grow my board while also being able to push damage on a turn that I otherwise might not be able to. And even though my opponent gets the creature back, I've got a big tempo swing and they could now be so behind on life that it's difficult for them to get back into the game. And they need to play more defensively. And then maybe when things stall out, Anya comes down and burns them out. So that's the sort of play pattern I'm hoping for with Dominating Vampire. It might turn out to not be what I'm looking for, but I think in the right situations, in the right board states, this card can really dominate a game. See what I did there? See what I did there? Sideboard, we've got an extra Sorin, a bit more value. We've got a bunch of discards, some more removal to bring in. Blood Vial Purvey is just sort of a fun of. I can see bringing this in against MonoGreen just because it's a chunky boy, just to help close out games and dominate the battlefield. The really interesting one here is Graveyard Trespasser because it's not a vampire, it's a werewolf. I originally had Westgate Regent in this slot, which is a 5 mana 4/4 flying vampire that gets bigger when it deals damage to an opponent. Both of those cards have ward, discard a card, which is what I'm interested in. So I can bring this in against interactive decks, against control decks, and they're not going to want to target it because they'll have to 2-for-1 themselves. And meanwhile, it can attack. It's reasonably sized. If it flips, it's above rate. It gives you some graveyard interaction. It gives you some extra drain effects. So it can help in a situation where you're racing, even though that might not come up all that much. But it can give you little pings, little bits of drains. You can keep getting little bits of damage in on a body that your opponent is really disincentivized to interact with. So basically our game plan, as I'm sure you can figure from the sideboard against control decks, for example, board in a bunch of discard, keep playing out our creatures, disrupt our opponent's hand, constrict their resources, and then something like Trespasser, if that hits the battlefield, it's going to be very hard for them to deal with because we've already taken a bunch of cards out of their hand and presented them with other threats that they need to answer. So even though it's not a vampire, so it doesn't synergize with the deck that way, it synergizes with what the deck is trying to do, and it's an otherwise very good card. That's overall the strategy of the deck. We're trying to play stuff out, turn things sideways, get people dead, have just enough interaction and disruption to keep our opponent off balance, and then get through the later parts of the game, either burning them out with Anya or getting a bit of value through Sorin. So I've been talking for a while. Why don't you shuffle up and I'll see you in the arena. Okay, I don't love this hand, but I think I can keep it. This could be our first win. Okay, free time walk. Feels good. Opponent is back. It's such a disadvantage though. I still take the first turn and I've got an extra card. Yeah, so I effectively started at 8 cards to their 7. Again, I should have played this before combat. I mean, it didn't matter. I wouldn't have been able to play any exiled card. This will be a fight spell. Maybe not. Maybe it's another 2-drop. No, it's a fight spell. No, it's a ranger class. Okay. So this might be the one time where our dominating vampire gets to actually do its job. Doesn't that seem exciting? This is so good. I'm going to draw a card. It is a 1-drop, but not one I can cast, unfortunately. So, Valentin... I mean, I would love to take something else, but Valentin is the only one I can play. So this is the sort of degeneracy that I was hoping to get up to with this deck. You know, our opponent is now, like, thoroughly on the back foot. I mean, they can definitely get out of this. This will be like, what, a chariot? Old growth troll, sure. So my options... I really thought this was on damage. Wow. It's kind of terrible. Like, it's just never going to flip. It's basically just a 2-mana flyer. Okay. I'm probably going to have to make some tweaks to the deck. So my options, activate Den of the Bugbear. Yeah, I can activate Den of the Bugbear. I can play out Anya. My problem at this point is I can't attack through the troll very effectively. That's a pretty disappointing draw there. Do I just want to get another flyer? That's like a guaranteed 4 damage. And then have 1, 2, 3, 4. Do I want... I think I just play this. I could have played these two. It's a possibility, but yeah, I obviously just had to slow down for that turn. But I should be able to push through a fair bit of damage this turn. Opponent gains a bit of life. That's sad. Definitely sad. Yeah, they forgot about first strike on Florian there. Forgot about the first strike. The problem is here, like, I don't really want to cut anything. Like, everything in my deck feels kind of decent in this matchup. But, I mean, more removal's nice, right? How good is Vampire's Vengeance here? I'm sure it's still decent, but I don't know if it's great. I don't think... but they do have just trouble dealing with flyers, don't they? So I don't really want to keep this. I think Cemetery Gatekeeper's honestly not the best thing in the world here, so I think I maybe cut down some of those. I'll be on the draw, won't I? Okay, so maybe I cut some 1-drops and just try like this. I don't know. Obviously, I'm happy to see the Socialites, but this isn't... Honestly, it's not that bad of a hand. This thing has Menace. I do tend to forget about Menace. Triple Vampire Socialite. This could get pretty degenerate pretty quickly. So I can attack, play a Socialite, buff everything. I have 2 3/3s now. I'm probably going to lose one to a fight effect. There it is. Oh. Brutal. Actually, I think that I take this turn to rebuild. This sucks because when I cast my Blood Chief's Thirst, I'm going to take some damage. Force them to have it. This doesn't work the way I want it to. I'm just going to lose both of my creatures. I was thinking, oh yeah, first strike, I'll be fine. That was very silly of me. At least I get some blood tokens. I'm so far behind now. Those blocks were really bad, but that's like 100% on me. Okay, I'm back on the play, so I do want the 1-drops. Yeah, that was my bad. I could have had a much better turn there. I should have just let the elephant through. Even just could have killed the elephant. Then we would have had an empty battlefield. They would have played out their chariot. I could have played out something. 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, and probably about the best. I think this is about the best curve this deck can produce. So that is an easy keep. This guy having Menace is a really big deal to trigger the Socialite here. Menace and Lifelink, and now he gets buffed. So yeah, I mean, everything about this is nice. And our opponent has no play on turn 1 or 2, so this is just very good for us. I'd like all of those, please. Mammoth, sure. I should have attacked with the Socialite. It has Menace. I keep forgetting about Menace. So that's 2 damage I missed out on, so we should just keep an eye on, see if that becomes relevant later. Do I want to make a pest token? Or do I just want to play out my flyer? I think I want to play out my flyer. You beat MonoGreen. I don't know what my opponent was thinking keeping that hand. This hand is clearly terrible. This hand is much better. Land situation's a little bit awkward. Quite heavy on 2 drops. I think we put back a 4-drop. We play this first so that we can guarantee a turn 2 play. So this will likely be Socialite into Socialite. Assuming it doesn't get removed. Looks like my opponent has drawn removal and they're thinking about it. And this will probably be a Blood in the Snow deck. You may have my Abrade. Alternatively, you may have my Abrade. Both of these obviously more useful at the moment. See if our opponent knows how First Strike works. They do. So obviously I could play the Socialite and trigger that, but this seems way more valuable at the moment.
You can deal with my servant. I'm busy.
I mean, it's obviously a way more efficient use of our mana, but it also diversifies our board a bit. Puts another creature down. We've got a Planeswalker. We can start getting some recurring value. Sure.
Wish to know my secrets? Very well.
Getting a bit of life back. Off the team. Off the team. Very difficult for them to attack with Trespasser now that we have a 4/3 First Striker. Opponent's missed a land drop. I mean, we missed a land drop last turn, but our opponent missed a land drop there as well, which is nice. Sure, take it. Have it, it's yours. Now, do I want to draw with Sorin? Or do I want to make another creature? That's a tough one. Kind of wish I'd made a creature.
Innistrad is free.
Now, attacks are a little bit of a pickle. If I attack with a Socialite, chances are they double block. And I lose a Socialite. So maybe I attack like this. I want to keep pushing damage as much as I can while still protecting my Sorin. And I guess I'm just holding up activation of the Voldaren estate. I didn't think about the Glutton flipping. I should have kept the first striker back. But then our opponent would be on like 13. You know, maybe I just chomp with a Socialite. If they want to attack like that. Activate this now while it's as cheap as possible. Double block here. I mean, if I'm going to chump, I might as well kill it. I was leery. Part of the reason I was wondering, do I draw a card or make a creature, is I'm assuming my opponent is ramping up to a Blood on the Snow. And so do I want to have resources available in my hand to rebuild after that? But yeah, honestly, I wish I'd just made the creature and I could just have them very close to dead at this point. There's no point attacking with the Socialite at this point because they can just block with the Glutton and one of the Acquisitions Experts, and I just lose my Socialite for no value. Attacking first so that things come in with counters.
Serve me well.
Holding this up to just discard to a blood token, basically. Yeah. I don't think I want the Purveyor here. Pit Fighters aren't very good if they're running 1/2s that make me discard a card. They just run into them. I think I want some discard. I'm assuming they're a Blood on the Snow deck, so I want to get rid of their graveyard, hence I'm bringing in the Go Blank. Dominating Vampire could be good because they're running some chumpy boys. Sorin, as we saw, was good there to just give us some recurring value. This can hit Planeswalkers. It's expensive, but it can do it. I don't want to have too much removal because that's not really what this matchup is about, because my opponent's just going to bring back everything I kill anyway. Forebear could be good here to just grind out some advantage. And I mean, the flyer gave them some problems. They don't really have great answers to flyers. But it also just feels like one of the weaker cards in my deck. Particularly like with this setup, I'm not frequently going to be producing enough blood vials to flip her. And as I said in a previous video, which may or may not make it to this final cut, I misunderstood the card and I thought you got the blood vials on attack triggers. I just misread it, so it's 100% on me. I have 1-drop, 2-drop. I can't cast my Duress, but the hand is okay without being amazing. Okay, I now can cast my Duress, but I kind of just want to get on board though. So do I want to cast this first? And I'll leave that decision till a bit later. I think yes, even though it's going to cost me at least 2 life. Because next turn, if I want to cast the Socialite, I need colored mana again. This is the weakest card in my hand at the moment. I mean, honestly, it looks like my opponent might just be playing discard control. I'm sure they've got Blood on the Snow. Like, snow-covered swamps, Elderfang Disciples, Acquisitions Experts, so they're just trying to reduce my hand size and then get everything back with Blood on the Snow, surely. Surely that's what this is. Oh, that's so good for us, spending your whole turn just for telling. So I can get down Florian here, but I can't really do much with him. I mean, this is an obvious attack, but I think what I do here is Duress. Escape Regent. I mean, it's going to be so long till they get to that. Concealing Curtains, I love. Oh, so this is actually just MonoBlack, like some weird MonoBlack Midrange by the look of it. You wouldn't have all of these creatures in a Blood on the Snow deck, but I get to get rid of their only removal spell. So it's actually really good. It worked out really well that I didn't play Florian there, because Florian just would have walked straight into a Soul Shatter, and I would have had no value. All these guys have Menace, so there's nothing they can do to block. Ah, it's a Poison the Cup. Sure. Two to the bottom's very good for us. I was going to cast Go Blank, but since I've lost a creature, I now want to play Florian to keep pressure on the board, which is kind of unfortunate because it would have been better to play him pre-combat then, get the trigger, maybe find a land, but our opponent's stuck on lands. I have a feeling our opponent does not run enough lands in their deck, but we take that. We're back up to 50% after a disastrous first couple of games. This hand is terrible. This is absolutely reckless, but I'm going to keep it. Let's see if we can sort out that green screen a little bit. We cannot. Oh well. Sorry guys, you'll just have to deal with the fuzz. Drew a land, never punished. Okay, so something's getting removed here. If I play this, I'm at least left with some lasting value. Wait, no, I'm not. I'm just left with a 2/2 menace. That's fine. Oopsie. So this will enter out of Dragon's Fire range at least. Is this that weird burn deck that Sonio put out? Or is our opponent just drawing terribly? Like, there was no stick there. They don't seem to have anything. Only piece of removal. But I think I do this. Just maximum pressure on the board. Is our opponent on mono red dragons? Okay, no, they're on Boros something. Here's a gold span. Wish I had that Infernal Grasp now. So they need to kill Florian here. Yep, they find it. That's fine. Dominating Vampire will get this job done. And oh no. Oh no. I can't steal it. I still have lethal here. But I can't steal the dragon. Okay, so it doesn't look like Vampire is going to be particularly good here. This can block a Goldspan Dragon, which is nice. I probably want the Trespassers just because of the ward factor. This doesn't line up very well against Goldspan Dragon, so I think I take that out, bring in Sorin, bring in Duress. Brave seems not that good. On the draw, the 2/1s are also less good. I think I just leave it like this. I was kind of tempted to bring in like Go Blank, something like that, but I don't think I know enough about my opponent's deck to actually sideboard that aggressively. I don't love this hand, but it seems okay. I've got things to do for the first few turns. Because I drew this, I'm actually a little more inclined to play this Duress. Nah, stuff it. Let's get on board. They remove it, they remove it. We can Cemetery Gatekeeper on whatever they remove it with. Ambitious Farmhand. Okay. That is a card that you have played. Will not be transforming it anytime soon. Socialite probably gets removed, but we now have a 2/2 Menace lifelink. Start pulling us further ahead. Should be good. If we want, next turn we can Duress into Gatekeeper instead of, yeah, that's a bad attack. Let's make sure we get to double black. That's a sorcery, so I'm going to snag that. And then I can grab an instant with this Gatekeeper. So if they want to use their removal spell, they take some damage. Obviously, the Maniform Hellkite's going to be a little bit of a problem. What's my best play here? Sorin, try to draw into an answer. Graveyard Trespasser. This pushes damage a little more effectively. I can't attack. So the unfortunate thing here is they can just kind of camp on their Maniform Hellkite. They don't have to attack with it to push damage. They can just use its triggered ability to like cast spells and get through. Yeah, so this is like a weird Boros burn control situation, which is kind of cool. I respect it. So we're hoping they attack. They do. At least with that. Okay, attack with both, so I do get to push through some damage next turn, which is nice. That is nice. I'm going to make another lifelinker. Sorin's hopefully going to soak up some damage from one of these dragons. So I'm just trying to pad my life total with this play. You know, if they attack down Sorin... Okay, so they attack Sorin with the token. He's still effectively gained us 2 life. It's not nothing. They get in with the Goldspan Dragon. Why are they not attacking with the token? Do they not know how their card works?
Not abandon my quest.
I think they don't know how their card works. I kind of wish I had Dominating Vampire now, to be honest. Okay, so if they're going to be more cautious and sit back like this,
Out of my way.
I'm going to tick up, draw a card, hopefully.
Dire times call for dire tactics.
I hate Sorin's voice. I like him as a character, but the voice acting just, I hate it. So I don't have any safe attacks. I mean, I could just attack, push 4 damage, but that doesn't seem like the future. There's no point in me casting this Duress. If they want to kill it now, they need to attack him with at least 2 creatures. So I should be able, hopefully we'll be able to attack with something next turn. Would love to find some of my removal. So one thing I have been noticing is my removal is not lining up well enough against decks that aren't white or green.
These wounds won't last.
And even though I am Like I have removal in my deck, but I'm often not finding it in the time that I need it. I mean, there's no value in not putting that into my hand, right? So if they want to block the Glutton, my Valentin gets through, uncontested. This is a really weird block, but I'll take it. I actually will do that. I have 2 vampires, so this would cost 3. That was a really weird block. I don't quite understand why my opponent has been so conservative with the Hellkite. Why they didn't attack with the token to kill the Sorin when they had the chance. Last turn I would have they could have got Sorin off the board. So that's another card I've drawn that they didn't have to give me. Everything about this game just seems weird. But back to what I was saying, my removal, I'm not finding it often enough and it's not quite lining up for me when I do. I've got some Blood Chief's Thirst in the sideboard, but I just honestly don't think it's very good. Opponent scoops, wonderful. 4 mana to kill something at sorcery speed is just so bad so often. So that's some changes I want to make there. Okay, so based on my experiences in those games, I've made a few changes to the deck already. I did actually record myself making all of these changes and it just turned into like a really long thing that probably isn't very interesting for anyone. So I've brought in some cheaper creatures. I brought in a couple more 1-drops in VOW and Epicure. I've brought in 2 Blood Tithe Harvesters. To make room for those, I've cut the Dominating Vampires. The Dominating Vampires can be really good, but they're only good when you're ahead, and only in certain matchups. So in like white, mono green, when you're on the play, if you have a bunch of vampires and you know your opponent plays a creature, you can steal it for a turn, push 3 damage, and just put them so far behind that it's really hard for them to catch back up. Can be really good, but that's really situational. And a removal spell would do a lot of the same. Like obviously in that specific scenario, the vampire is better because you're developing your board while pushing back your opponent. It's a big tempo play. But outside of that specific scenario, it's a 3-mana 3/3. And you need to have enough vampires on the board to pull it off. And without a lot of cheap vampires, you're not going to have that many vampires on the board. So like, I did enjoy it when I pulled it off, but most times that I saw the card, I wished it was something else. I think if it's going to stay in the deck, it's at best a sideboard piece. So I have 1 in the sideboard now just for my own amusement, but I cut that, brought in a few more cheap creatures. I cut 1 Voldaran Bloodcaster to bring in a Null Priest of Oblivion. The Bloodcaster, I had misread this, so there's that. But yeah, it just didn't turn out being as good as I liked. It's nice as an evasive 2-drop that can trigger your Vampire Socialite. But as I pointed out, it's there's some common, it's like a 2-mana 2/1 Vampire Flyer that can't block. It's draft trash. And this is effectively, functionally the same card in terms of how it plays for me. I never saw enough blood tokens to get close to flipping it. It felt good when I had 2 of these out and a creature died, but Otherwise, it really doesn't do that much. So I brought in 1 Null Priest of Oblivion. It's a 2-mana 2/1 with Menace, so it's still an evasive, same body. This one has lifelink, so that's nice. But then sometimes in the late game, maybe I'm going to play its kicker and bring something back. I don't think this card is great either. I don't think this is going to be a particularly great card in the deck either, but I don't think it's going to be any worse than the Bloodcaster, and it could be an interesting one of. I might end up cutting these, bringing in more blood type harvesters. Harvester, 2-mana 3/2, creates a blood token when it enters, and you can sack it to give something -X/-X until end of turn, where X is double the amount of blood tokens you control. So it's an aggressively costed creature when you need that, and it can be a removal spell when you need that. On Voldaren Epicure, I don't love this card. It's not super powerful, but it does a few things that we're interested in. It's a 1-mana 1/1, so it's a 1-drop for when we want to be aggressive. It's not great, but it is that. It does 1 damage, so we can trigger a Socialite or a Florian when we need the triggers and give us a little bit of reach, and it creates a blood token, which is also useful. None of those things are individually very powerful, but I'm hoping all of them together might make the card okay. Gabriel Nassif played, I think, 4 of these in his version, and he said it was okay. So seems okay. I've also cut a single Cemetery Gatekeeper just to make room for some other things here. This has also had the effect of lowering my curve a bit, which is nice. I would often be sitting on a few 3-drops when I really want to curve out aggressively. I've twiddled around with the sideboard a bit. I cut Burning Hands and the Bloodchief's Thirst. I brought in Power Word Kill. 4 mana to kill a Planeswalker at sorcery speed or a larger creature when that comes up. It's too much and too slow. Power Word Kill functionally does the same thing as Burning Hands in terms of killing creatures against green decks because they're not playing Angels, Demons, Devils, or Dragons. With the added flexibility of being more flexible and killing more things and not being limited to 6 damage. It can't hit a Planeswalker, but 4 damage at sorcery speed to kill a Planeswalker isn't really where a deck like this wants to be, I think. I brought in, what did I bring in? I brought in the 2 Power Word Kills and the Dominating Vampire in exchange for Burning Hands and 2 Bloodchief's Thirst. I may well end up changing this into something else. I was a little bit worried about having enough answers to Smoldering Egg. I don't know if I do at the moment, but I also don't think I should overthink that based on one game where I had answers in my deck and just didn't find them in several games. So we're going to leave it like this for the moment. Ultimately, I think Purveyor, Sorin, and Dominating Vampire are going to disappear from the sideboard and be replaced with something else. I can see myself making some more changes to the main deck. Cemetery Gatekeeper is not at its best in this deck, and I knew that when I was crafting, like before release, when I was theory crafting the deck. You know, a Punisher card like this would be much better in like mono red aggro, something hyper aggressive that wants a lot of reach. But it is a 2-drop vampire. It has first strike, and it can give me a bit of reach to turn on Socialite, Voldaren Scion. It does enough against, like, is it dragons if you can hit sorceries or instants to help mitigate some of the tempo loss by pushing damage. It does enough that I'm happy to keep it in the deck for now. I knew going in that 4 was probably not correct. Honestly, I believed 0 was more likely to be correct than 4, but I wanted to try out the new card. I can see this easily coming down to a 2 of in the future to make way for something else. I might still want more 2-drops. If you're wondering at home about crafting this and you don't have it, I wouldn't recommend crafting the Bloodcaster. It's not worth it for a rare wild card that functionally just plays as a 2-mana. Like, you could just get that, I'm actually going to look it up for you guys. You could just get that common vampire. Vampire Interloper. 2-mana, 2/1, flying, can't block. Throw this in your deck and save yourself the rare wild cards. It's going to do functionally the same thing. Null Priest of Oblivion, if you have that, functionally the same thing, a little more flexible. Like, they're both not great on their flat rate, and make up for it with a little bit of flexibility maybe in the late game. You could even put in Slaughter Specialist, but again, I wouldn't recommend spending a rare on that. But yeah, those are the changes I've made for now. I'll probably continue to make changes as I continue to play. This deck builder is an absolute nightmare. Like, Wizards, fix your product. You have enough money to hire more staff to do better. Like, come on. Come on. You're a multinational company and this is what you're giving us. Anyway, that's it for the deck outro. I'm sorry I can't give you one last look at it because Wizards deck builder is hot garbage. There we go. So soak it in and in all its glory. As always, everyone, thanks for tuning in. You stay brilliant, and I'll catch you real soon.